Hey guys, it's Penelope in London. We're looking at Mercury retrograde, which went retrograde stationed, and we're going to look on the chart here, and you can see we find Mercury is stationed at the moment here, and we'll push the chart forward and we'll look at how long it's retrograde for. It's about 3 weeks, but we're going to push it forward to see what happens over the coming few weeks as it moves. What we've got with the current chart is that we've also got Pluto up here. Mars is moving into an opposition in the coming few days. So I'm going to show you, and I'll show you that as well, but I'm going to make a separate video on this Pluto-Mars opposition. You can see you've got Pluto up there at 26 retrograde. And then you have Mars here, which is in the sign of Cancer. And when it gets to 26, as here, it will be an absolute, opposite. So it will be an absolute opposition. What we have quite beautifully, the moon has literally just moved over Pluto. And we know that Pluto moon can, cause transformation, but it brings up a lot of emotion as well, because they are deep emotions, and Pluto and the depth of being and all that's unconscious in us, and the moon is our emotions. So we have this sort of push-pull when that happens with ourselves emotionally. But with the Mercury retrograde, what we have is that it's Mercury is indiscriminate information, and it's also collected information and data, and sometimes it can be conflicting because it's subjective. And Mercury, when it goes retrograde, it wants to throw off all the information that is not relevant. So if we consider what we've been through over the last month since the last retrograde that occurred, we've been through a lot of growth, and a lot of stuff's showing up about rules, regulations, where we're going forward. And we have the node. If we think the ruler we've got Mercury here, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. So these two, dance together. They're related very heavily. And also Mercury also covers Virgo, which is information. And the higher mind is Jupiter. And Jupiter currently is at 1 degree of Pisces, and it's going to go to 2 degrees. Jupiter will go 2 degrees, and then it's going to go retrograde in the coming weeks. I can't remember the exact date. But with Mercury retrograde, if you have this at birth, then it will apply to you. So the same that, you want to throw off information that's not relevant to you, and it's sifting through. And we look at what's relevant for our own soul journey, and we need to simplify. So we'll be seeing ourselves do that as we go over information that we've collected personally for our own soul, because we're all different and we're all on a different soul journey, even though the collective is on, obviously, the collective's soul journey. We've also got here where we will want to retreat, and it's good to rewind, release, and review, and to develop our own thoughts and our own voice and our own views. And sometimes we need to go internal in order to do that. And it's about personal truth instead of the collective. And, it's like, what does this mean to me? So what is going on in the world? It's like this time where we can catch up. I'm actually enjoying Mercury retrograde. I am Gemini Sun and Gemini Moon, and I feel very connected to Mercury. I'm very speedy, so I find it a nice time when I can slow down and go inward and be a bit more quiet and gentle with myself. We've also got that the Mercury archetype, it's to do with external information. It rules the 3rd house. In astrology, Gemini is the 3rd house. And with the subjective thinking, it's like emails, it's buying tickets to travel somewhere, it's also local communication, and traditionally with siblings. And I always look at that word, the siblings thing, that really we're connected, so we can have like our own family that's not our family as well. And it's also about our personal feelings. With the subjective idea around this, it's about our personal feelings, tastes, and opinions. And also some of us, may not want unnecessary information when this is going on. And I did look actually at which I will bring up at some point, my progress chart, and my Mercury has gone retrograde in my progressed chart, and it's retrograde for the next until 2044. So I can see there how that's worked for me. It's like I've collected so much data throughout my life, and now I'm organizing it in a way. It's like what's relevant to me in my soul journey. It's like I've, collected so much from the collective, and I share this information. So it's not that where do I stop, but it's just that putting it in a different way and what's relevant at this point in my life and for the next 20 years, which is incredible to me, or 2044, which is more actually. Mercury retrograde is pointing to our left brain. It's to do with our left brain thinking, but then we have Jupiter, which is to do with our right brain and the intuition that we have as well. And I had a very intuitive situation that took place today on Mercury retrograde, and it was very intuitive what I did, and it was a little bit tricky for me, but I was quite proud of myself how I dealt with something and followed my intuition, and it helped me, to be safe, which was really fantastic. Mercury is also, we know that the right brain is, it's very fact-based, it's numbers, it's like our shopping list, it's things we got to do. And then the higher mind, and it's where we speak to the soul and the soul's purpose. So what is my soul purpose? What am I doing here? And I know what that is at this point in my life, but clearly we're all different. And how this is going to affect us and play out is depending on what house it's in for us. So I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. If you're familiar with astrology, you will know, but I'm going to go to this chart here. And what you can see is that my Mercury, this is my chart, and you can get your own chart at astro.com as well. Your time of birth is very important because the rising sign changes every 2 hours. So you can see here I'm 27 degrees Scorpio. And if I was born a bit later or a bit earlier, then it's going to be different. It's moving 30 degrees roughly every 2 hours, and different for everyone all over the world, depending on the country you're in because of the ecliptic and mathematical calculations. So if I look here, what's happening with that? So that Mercury is going to go retrograde, okay? It's going retrograde, and then it's going to go forward again. So it's in my 7th house, and it's near my moon as well. And it's also going to touch on my Jupiter. So these planets are included. But then we would look at what else is that Mercury doing in my chart as it does that. We know it's in my 7th house, and it will be there. And it's to do with others. It's to do with my communication with other and bouncing things off of people and partnerships. And partnerships are not only relationship partnerships, but all relationships and everything that people were interacting with in our lives. So then if we see that it's going to have certain aspects. So if I go 1, 2, 3, so you can see my Saturn here. So it will, as it goes forward, it's going to square my Saturn. So if we look at where Mercury is right now, it's at 24 degrees, and it will, it's literally going to go back over my moon as well. Or it's going to go back. I don't think it hits my moon. We'll look at the solar fire. We'll go back to that in a moment. And we know that, at this level, that is really that 27 degrees and 25, it is actually square to my Chiron, which is my wound and my hypersensitivity, my healing, and also my Saturn. And then if we look here, that as it goes back, my moon is square to Pluto up here, and to Uranus, and it's almost by 3 degrees in a square to my MC. So this is about my public image. It's also about my wounds and childhood and about authority. So there's a lot of me, and I can understand how that's playing out in my life. And with the 7th house, it's with others. I'm dealing with, many things at this point. And then we would look also, so we can see that's a square. And then maybe it's trining something. So as these things happen, we don't want to look at one aspect and freak ourselves out and say, oh my God, it's like Mercury retrograde. And then, this is a beautiful work of art, our charts, because basically the understanding is that we're basically getting to a point where we're making the unconscious conscious as we discuss this. Can I understand myself? What does this planet mean? What does the house mean? What do the aspects mean? And then it's almost on my Jupiter, it's a bit of it's a bit not in orb quite, but it's 24 degrees and that's 3. So then it will go backwards and it will touch upon other things in my chart. If we look here, this is my Black Moon Lilith, this is my asteroid Lilith. And if we go back here, so you would see that if that's here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 120 degrees. So then it will, Mercury will go direct. So now what I'm going to do is go back to Solar Fire and show you the emanated page. So what's going on here? Let's have a little movement go on this chart. We can see that the moon has literally just moved over. The moon is in Capricorn, and then it's going to move into the sign of Aquarius here. So we'll be thinking out of the box for a few days. We've got, if we look at the sun is sextile to Chiron. So if you look where the sun is right now, the sun is going to be moving in a few days. It will conjunct the North Node. So that's quite a good energy. It can fire us up. I was born with this symbolism. It can be used in, to our advantage. And we've also got that we know that the sun is sextile to Chiron is our wound. So see here, and that's moving on in. And if we look at what that means, the sun is its vitality, and it's Chiron is the wounded healer, and it's the planet of healing, and it's also our concealed trauma from childhood and imprints and maybe past life, imprints, if we believe that, which I can see that to be some reality, even if not the collective and our ancestors that we carry the information. With the sun, when it's sextile to Chiron, there's a light shining on renewal and deep healing. And it's where we could become more aware of our deeper issues over the next few days, and also the wounds that have long been buried. And there can be profound healing with this thing, with this sextile going on here, which is quite beautiful. The sun is also trying to Saturn. And if you look here, the sun is 8 and Saturn is 13. So it's moving on into a trine as well, which is over the coming days. So that's not going away for a while. And this is also, if we remember the sun, it's our life, it's the center of things. And that Saturn is to do with our restriction and structure and karma and government and the public eye. And when we have the trine here, there's a light shining on responsibility, and we need to be grounded and sober minded. And good progress can be made, so we have to work together, the collective sun at trine the collective Saturn. In our own chart, that would be doing something else, because that would be, these planets would be transposed onto our own chart. The next one that I'd like to look at, if you can see, the sun is also currently trine to the moon. I think it's moving on in. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, you can see that's moving on in. The moon is moving on in to trine the sun. And what does that mean? So the sun trine, I love learning aspects, because this is fundamentally the most important part, of astrology. If somebody doesn't have their birth time, for instance, and they're not sure of their rising sign, then we can set the sun at the beginning of the chart at 0 degrees. For me, it would be Gemini then, and then we can see the aspects, and then we can understand the transits, which are really important. So again, with the moon, there's the sun and the sex trining the moon, there's a nice feeling. It's a powerful energy, and we can, gain a lot of wisdom, and that will arise at this time. There can be a lot of wisdom, hopefully, that takes place as the moon moves quite quickly, though, as we know. It's 28 days around the chart, and it's likely that we can find, in part success with our projects and with this. But again, we would look at our own chart with that. And then the sun square Jupiter, because Jupiter is about, higher learning, it's about justice, it's about truth, it's about law. It's also to do with publishing, it's to do with teaching, it's to do with spirituality, and it's to do with religion as well. It can be to do with dogma, but it's also a gift for us. Jupiter is quite beautiful. It's our higher mind. And with the Jupiter, there's a light shining on, you know, that where we can feel abundance, and also there's opportunities, and there can be some optimism with this aspect. With the Sun, it's in a weak square, but let's see if we look at, you know, it's moving off actually 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3. Actually, it's moving on in, by the looks of it. Let me see. Trining 1, 2, 3, because that would be a square, and then it's moving on in. So bit by bit, that's within actually it says within 7 degrees. So maybe I would need to look at it on my other chart. But anyway, now what I want to do is take this Mercury forward. So remember, you're going to look at the house. If it's in your first house, Mercury, it's to do with yourself and your self-concept of self and the way you appear in the world. If that Mercury is in your second house, it's to do with your values and your inner needs. It's resolving that, and your, you know, money, because that's Taurus. If the second house is Taurus, regardless of what the second house, you'll also add in your own house, whatever that, if you get that as an example. My third house is Aquarius, but my, you know, we look at this, Mercury, it's moving through the sign of Gemini, so we take in wherever that is going on for us. I hope that makes sense. And then we've got third house is about our communications, and the fourth house is to do with home and family and the roots of things. And then the fifth house is joy, fun, and creativity and children. And the sixth house is to do with our work. The seventh house is to do with partnerships, all sorts, business and all interactions with other. The eighth house is to do with birth, death, transformation, and merging and shared resources, and also legal things, stuff like that. The ninth house is to do with overseas travel, higher education, and it's Jupiter rules the ninth house. And it's also, we've got the 10th house, which is our public image, so, and our work, and, you know, our place in the world, our face to the world, our mask maybe. And then we got the favorite word at the moment for many, you know, we're struggling with what's going on, but we're making it through, many of us. The 11th house is our hopes and dreams, and it's to do with what we, you know, not just for us, but for the collective as well. And the 12th house is where we surrender, and it's behind closed doors. It's, you know, the you know, libraries and hospitals and behind closed doors, anything that, you know, secrets as well and such like, and hidden enemies. The 8th house is actually, I think it was the 7th house. I should get this right. 7th house, 8th house. Open enemies, may have that wrong, but the hidden enemies are, you know, also in 12. So let's take this forward, and then I shall leave it there for today. And if you've got any comments on this video and you know, want to look at your Mercury more, then you know what you're looking at as well. So let's go by days, because it's 21 days. So this is currently the 30th of May. We're in the United Kingdom, and we're going to go 5 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to watch that Mercury retrograde. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's still retrograde at 21 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's retrograde back to 18, and we're going to go back more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There you go. Oh, Mercury, I've made it go forward. Hang on a minute. We're going to go back. 1, 2, 3. There you go. It stations on the 22nd of June. Okay. So it stations on the 22nd of June. It's retrograde on the 21st of June. Then it goes station on the 22nd of June. And then it's still in station on the 23rd and 24th. It goes direct at 16 degrees. So that's wherever 16 degrees of Gemini is in your chart, it's going to retrograde back to that. And then it will go direct again. And also Mars at that point would have, if we go back a few days, because that's actually the 5th of that Mars opposing Pluto, which is my next video. You can see up here, it's literally there. So 6th of June, that's what we're looking at, the 5th and 6th of June, depending on where you are, it will be in that opposition, but it's moving on in, it's applying to it. I would tell you about this Mars. Mars takes 2 years to move around the chart. So what I'm going to show you is, if we go back to, this is the 6th of June up here, 2021, Mars, since we had the beginning of lockdowns, I'm going to show you, if we go back to, let's say, the 8th of March 2020, I'm going to show you where that Mars was. So watch Mars here, and you can see that that Mars on the 8th of March 2020 was just going to hit Jupiter, and then it was going to hit Pluto. You can see this. So if I go days, watch that Mars here, 14 degrees. So Mars, this was in March 2020. It moved over Jupiter, it moved over Pluto, and then we went into serious lockdown. So this was the beginning, January 2020, that astrologers knew, the symbolism knew that we were going to have the breakdown of patriarchy and the systems, you know, because it's to do with the Saturn as well, when it moved over Saturn. So since, if we look back to that, since, if I go months ahead, actually, you'll see this, that since this is the 2nd of April 2020, if I go months and I go, because we're now in the 30th of May 2021, just watch that Mars. I'm going to take it 5 months forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3. This is May 4, and where this is really literally where we're at. So it's taken all of that time to get to the opposition, and and then it will get back around there in another year. So fascinating stuff, astrology, what it shows and how it helps us to evolve and to know ourselves. It's really beautiful. Okay, I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.